Okay, so now we have holes in our little pieces of wood, a little smaller than the thickness of my nail. This is about 3/8 plywood, and this is some scrap pine lumber. So this is fairly thin. It's not super strong, so I have to be a little gentle with this. If I was doing this with oak or something really hardy like that, I could be rougher. But as it is, you'll see what I mean when I say that this requires a little bit of delicacy. Point. Now I'm going to move this here. Okay, you can see the anvil, I believe. Sure hope so. Yeah. Okay, an anvil is really handy for this because one thing an anvil has is holes in it. I can put the nail right over that hole and drive the nail without worrying about the metal point poking through and damaging anything. The point of my nail is not through the board yet. I want to get it through gradually. Not there yet. Now the tip of the nail is right even with the wood, just starting to poke through. I'm not going to do anything special with this yet, but this is when I'm going to start thinking about bending that nail. First, you get a little further through. Oh, and if you don't have an anvil with a hole in it or anything like that, you can also just put this right up to the edge of something solid, like the table of a vise, or even just do this on a scrap piece of wood and just let the nail dig into it. Either one can work. Okay. You can see the point of the nail is just starting to poke through there. That's not enough I can really hit it with anything effectively yet, so I'm going to keep going a little. Now, that's enough that I can start messing with it with a hammer. I take all of this about as seriously as I believe it deserves to be taken. Square-faced planishing hammer. Really handy for this, to avoid scraping up your wood. You can get inexpensive planishing hammers in auto body hammer kits that'll have that little square face. Comes in handy. As you can see, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to be striking almost parallel to the wood, and you can see that this cut nail is very narrow this way, a little thicker this way. I'm going to bend it along the wide axis. I want it to bend naturally. If I try to bend it this way, it's going to... If I try to bend it this way, it's going to crumple. It's not going to bend smoothly. Bend it this way, it's going to bend a little more naturally. It's going to be a little more cooperative with it. So, resting the edge of this right here. And see? I've started to bend that sucker over. You can see it a little better here if I can get the thing to focus. Now, at this point, I've got it started. Let's say I want to go a little farther with that if I can, but I really don't want to damage the wood. If I just go wailing on this, I'm going to crack the wood and then this is going to suck. So now, I've got my slightly bent nail starting to be clenched. Now I want to drive it a little further into the board. Okay, now I've got a little bit more to work with. Now, just going to continue that bend. I can also rest the nail on the anvil, and I can try striking the tip of the nail that's coming up. Problem here is, while this isn't fully embedded in the wood yet, it's not sunk to the head yet, that could mean I just bend the nail, and that doesn't really work well, because as I think everybody knows, a bent nail doesn't drive worth a darn, and looks lame. So, I could do a little of that. Yeah, see, now I've got that folding over nicely. Well on our way. Now, I'm going to drive this the rest of the way home. Bam. Okay. So now my head is flat down to the surface. It's nice and tight. And now here's what I've got sticking out. Right now, that just looks like something that's waiting to hurt you, really. But we're going to make it our friend. It's important that you keep the head of the nail in contact with the surface of your anvil or whatever other strong thing that's under here. You really don't want to do this on just plain wood unless it's a very hard wood. You really want to get some sort of metal backing, because as we're working this, if we don't have something secure to hold that nail, it can just back out, and then we have done nothing of value. So now I'm tapping this guy. Now check this out. Now I've got it bending down back toward the wood. This is where we really get the happies. Because now, supporting the head of the nail on here, I can drive this sucker back into my wood. Now, this guy is bent all the way back down into the wood. It's got nowhere to go. I've got a little bit of rotation here, because there is a little bit of a gap, but this piece right here and this nail, there is no movement there. This is rotating on the shank of the nail. This is solid. They're effectively never going to be parted unless you go at this with a crowbar and a lot of ill will. Okay. I smoothed that down just a little bit more. Now, although I've had a nail through this board that wasn't tailored to the thickness of this at all, I've got a nice smooth nail there that's not going to catch anything. It's not going to scratch anything. If you can't go to the hardware store and find the exact right size nail for your project, or the exact right size screw for your project, you'd have nails sticking through stuff all over a medieval house. What do? Just dead nail them, clench them, just fold them over. So let's say you're attaching hinges to a medieval chest. Clench nails work beautifully. Let's say that, I don't know, maybe you're attaching a shield boss. These actually started out as rivets, but I ground the heads down and ground the shanks down to make them like cut nails, because I wanted a very specific size and shape, and I'm obsessive like that. But if you look back here, driven through and clenched, and again, rock solid despite years of beating on this thing, fighting, and budged. And I love that about it. Chances are the wood's going to wear out before those things ever develop any wobble. Now, if I needed to go through something thicker, I could do the exact same thing with a slightly longer nail. For that matter, even this nail that I just used, a little 1-inch nail, this will clench up to about a 3/4 inch thick board, but really no thicker. Beyond that, you're not able to actually get it up and back around. You can only get it in and kind of tamp the tip over. It's not as good, it's not as strong. And the best results are when you've got enough length, you can get the point up and hooking back down into the material below. Okay. Now the next step for this fascinating, fun medieval joinery technology is to make a clenched hook or loop. So I'm going to stop here, and then we're going to do that in a little while.